Round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs is officially underway.
With a matchup in the East featuring the top two dogs in the Atlantic Division.
That's right. It's the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs dropping the puck in Game 1.
And we've got that recap and so much more on this Monday night Stanley Cup playoff edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a sad Boston Bruins fan on the third coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Cam, only one game on the schedule tonight, our first taste of the second round. And much like the first round, what seemed like a sure win for the Leafs quickly evaporated in the third, and then it all went haywire.
Pretty boring, wasn't it? Pretty boring, as it has been the whole last couple of weeks. It would not be this year's Stanley Cup playoffs truly without the little late game drama that we got. It was too boring throughout most of this game. Toronto never trails in the game, but you wouldn't think they were as uncomfortable as they were. They defend off a ferocious late game comeback by the defending champs, but the Leafs take it 5-4 in regulation, which is important, in Game 1. Let's take you north of the border to Toronto. Quick start for the home team in this one. Slick Willie Nylander, really no angle on this one, but still puts it home 33 seconds into the game. And just to one-up that, a couple minutes later, he gets his second on a beautiful finish. He's going down. He puts it up high. 2-0 Toronto in the blink of an eye, 13 minutes in. That's 4 goals in the last 2 games for Willie Nylander, by the way. First Leaf to have back-to-back multi-goal games in the playoffs since Wendell Clark, the great Wendell Clark, back in 94. And it's kind of ho-hum. It gets to 2-1, then to 4-1. And then this game kind of gets turned on its head. Anthony Stolarz gets hurt. We're going to talk more about that in a second. Joseph Woll comes back into the game. And then it feels like the Panthers wake up a little bit. And it was that secondary scoring. Luostarinen makes it 4-2. Uvis Balinskis, of course, just who we all thought was going to get the right pick into the game. First career playoff goal, 4-3.
And he was playing for Ekblad. Because
yes,
Ekblad was suspended. So just who else?
And it was a nice goal, too. He went glove side high. Matthew Knies seems to put it away at 5-3. Cats get one more from Sam Bennett, of course, because he gets another big part in this game as well. He gets the goal that keeps them in the game with just under 2 minutes left, but the Leafs walk away with the victory. Let's check in with our Locked On Leaf host, David Morisuti, on what this means to be up 1-0 in the series with the Cats.
And breathe. The Toronto Maple Leafs took Game 1 over the Florida Panthers, and it was definitely an action-filled night. The Leafs got off to a great start with a 4-1 lead as Florida had no response for whatever Toronto was throwing at them. But then came the play that kind of changed things, not in the Leafs' favor, obviously, with Anthony Stolarz forced to leave the game after he was injured. Clearly, it looked like initially that maybe the concussion spotters were pulling him out after a little elbow from Sam Bennett knocked Stolarz down. But it actually looked like it was an illness impacting Stolarz, but it could be a little more than an illness. We don't know the full extent of what's going on with him. He was forced to leave the game. In comes Joseph Woll. And, of course, the Florida Panthers really pressed forward. They got 3 goals in the third period, but fortunately for the Leafs, Matthew Knies got that insurance goal to make sure the Leafs were able to hold on to take Game 1. I'm going to be breaking it down with the crew over at Locked On Leafs. Make sure you keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.
So that's the story of it. There's a point in this game where it all starts to turn. Stolarz gets hit. It's 3-1 at that point. He actually gets taken out at the next stoppage, which it's 4-1 at that point. Sam Bennett right in the middle of it again. But Tyler, that seemed to be the turning point in this game. It could be a huge, huge point in this series, even though the Panthers lose Game 1.
The health of Anthony Stolarz is significant. Matthew Knies, just speaking with the media, said, quote, hopefully the league will handle it and take good care of it. Talking about that elbow from Sam Bennett on Stolarz.
Real quick, what did you think of the elbow? Because you know how I feel about the Panthers in general, and social media seem to be on my side for this one. But we don't get a great angle of it. It's a very bang play. I think there's a sticking of the elbow out there, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Cam, we certainly know how you feel about the Florida Panthers.
Sam Bennett, clean cut.
The dirty Panthers that you like to say. They're a physical hockey team. It was bang, though, like you said. It happened quickly. Looking at the angles, I couldn't really tell. And then when you see Stolarz, they showed video of him puking over the side of the bench. And Mike Monaco, who was on the play-by-play for the broadcast on ESPN, you could hear it in his voice. He was almost like, okay, we're going to show you this video that we have. And at the time, with Toronto up 4-1, and it's not like Joseph Woll hasn't had experience this season. He started 41 games, had a 2.73 goals against average, .909 save percentage. He was 27-14-1 in games he's played this season. So my expectation was, yeah, you're coming off cold off the bench, but we've seen you do it before. It is the Stanley Cup playoffs, though. Nerves a little bit higher. Stolarz has been playing so well. He comes in, and I thought maybe things would be figured out, but early in that third period, you quickly realized that Florida can make this a hockey game. Unfortunately for the Panthers, they just did not come out of the gates hot enough. Toronto skated really well in that first period, and that's really what made the difference. That Knies goal. That fifth goal was critical for Toronto. You didn't think about it at the time, but with 6 minutes left, big one. Big sigh of relief for the Maple Leafs. But going back to Stolarz, yeah, what's his status? And how will the league handle this? Because it's a tough call to make. And did that elbow have an impact, or did Anthony Stolarz, was he battling a bug before puck even dropped?
Yeah, and I think if you're a Leafs fan, you really got to hope it's a bug that we didn't hear about, because if it's not, I'm not a doctor, but if it's not, that's really not a good sign. If you've seen the injury episode of The Office, you know what's coming there. I mean, that's usually a concussion that gets you to vomit in the middle of a game like that. And it is a hit to the head. Again, we know Bennett has a reputation. We only really see that over the top angle, looking straight down. So with me, there's like, I don't know if I need to see some more angles on that one. But we know he definitely has a reputation going with it. But back to Joseph Woll, he got the Leafs back in that series against the Bruins last year. People kind of forget that. They were down 3-1. Woll goes into the lineup, and he gives up 2 goals in 2 games. And gets them into a Game 7. He's not available for Game 7. It's back to Ilya Samsonov, who actually played really well in that game, but all of a sudden the Leafs are going golfing once again. And so Joseph Woll was a big part of that series. So maybe that is some silver lining for Leafs fans, because maybe just maybe, he does kind of keep the status quo. But when you've got a team with the mentality of the Panthers, like Tyler, as we'll rehash, like I'm not.
Here we go.
We know the Panthers have some kind of black magic, and I think they bend the rules quite a bit, but they are the champs for a reason. They've got a heck of a mentality. They don't get pushed around, even if they have to go low to get there. They don't get pushed around. And I think whether, Joseph Woll is pretty good or not, I think they have the seed already of like, you know what? We've wounded them a little bit. We didn't win. We lost this battle, but the war's still ongoing, and we've wounded them a little bit. And I think that does, not that the Cats need any more confidence, but I think that does kind of help them out going into Game 2.
Look, I think the big takeaway for Joseph Woll, he ended up with 17 saves on 20 shots. Stolarz had 8 saves on 9 shots before leaving. It's a lot different when you prepare as the starter of a hockey game versus coming in cold midway through the second period. So Joseph Woll, we've seen he's capable of playing in net for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think you give him the confidence that he was able to hang on. You have him prepared differently if necessary. But if Anthony Stolarz is ready to go, you have to start him in Game 1. That's my big takeaway. Hey, Florida beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in 5 games 2 years ago. So these are two teams. They were 1-2 in the Atlantic Division pretty much all season long. These are two teams. Florida had won 3 of the 4 games they played during the regular season. Toronto gets one here in game 1. The crowd in Toronto was fantastic. The shots outside the arena were unbelievable. Willie Nylander, those first 2 goals. Hey, that second goal in particular, you have former Panther Ekman Larsson, Anthony Stolarz, a former Panther, that shot from the side and then that pretty deke, and he was down on one knee. So Toronto was just clicking early and often, and that was the big push, and that propelled them to a win. And then again, going back to that Matthew Knies goal, Mitch Marner, beautiful chip off the board, up ahead, sweet backhand by Knies, almost using his body that you thought, I think Bobrovsky thought he was going to deke, ended up just lifting it, backhand, flipping it over the shoulder there. So pretty much a solid game for Toronto. I think as good a game 1 as you can get for a team that has been known to blow playoff games. They're able to hang on. Stolarz, again, big question mark. Will he be healthy for game 2 Wednesday night? That's a big question. If he's not, you get Woll in there, prepped and ready to go as the starter, and I think he gives you the game that he needs if that's what ends up happening.
It was a much tighter game than it looked like it was going to be halfway through, and credit to the Florida Panthers for that. When we come back after the break, we're going to take a look at the Cat side of things and how they can jump right back into this series in game 2 and the advantage they have over the Leafs, even though they're still on the road. That's coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Back here on Locked On NHL Game Night, Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman breaking down all the action in tonight's Stanley Cup Playoffs edition of Locked On NHL Game Night. One game. The Leafs take it 1-0 up in the series and a 5-4 victory in game 1. But the Panthers, they're defending champs for a reason. They did not go out quietly, even on the road, even when that building was up for grabs. Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers has the positive side for the Cats and why they could be just jumping right back into the series.
The comeback falls short for the Panthers. What's up, guys? Armando Velez here for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to quickly break down the Panthers' 5-4 loss against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 1 of Round 2. And the Panthers were playing from behind at the start. Less than a minute in, William Nylander gets a goal, then scores another one later. And the Panthers were unable to get their forecheck in early as the Leafs were getting the puck out very quickly. And they were also matching the physicality of the Panthers. The Panthers were attempting to come back from a multi-goal deficit, getting it to a 1-goal game after falling behind 3 goals, and then got it back to a 1-goal deficit with less than 2 minutes left, but the comeback falls short. The good news is they went 5 for 5 on the penalty kill against that lethal power play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to break all this down on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
So the Panthers had one more day of rest than the Leafs. Not enough to really get rust, Tyler, but they opened this series with a hard-fought 5-4 loss. What in your mind was Florida not doing when Toronto skates out to that 4-1 lead?
I would say that my biggest takeaway as to why the Panthers lost this game, Sergei Bobrovsky. I think if you look at all the goals that he gave up tonight, the Willie Nylander's second goal, beautiful. that third goal that Morgan Riley scored on that beautiful saucer outlet pass from Nylander, ripped that wrister past Bobrovsky, another tough one. So that's 2 that he should have allowed. And then the third one, Chris Tanev, that fourth goal, that should not have been in. That first goal from Nylander, I think he'd like to have that one back. And then the Matthew Knies goal, yeah, he'd want to have that one back. So that's 1, 2, 3 goals of the Maple Leafs 5. Panthers had 4 goals tonight. I think Bobby, he had 24 saves on 29 shots. He's going to have to be better. And sure, that's pressure, but when you have a potent offense like Toronto, you've got to be able to stop the shots that you're capable of stopping. And I hate to pin it on a goaltender because there were many more problems than just that. But I look at like right away what I thought through my eyes, my lens, Sergei Bobrovsky needs to be better throughout the rest of this series.
And lest we forget, until the conference final last year, he was really, and maybe even until the final, like he was not on top of his game in the postseason. In fact, I think the only reason the Panthers were somewhat challenged in the first 2 rounds last year against Tampa and Boston is because Bobrovsky was not on top of his game. So I don't know if this is just, I mean, obviously we're talking about one of the greatest goalies of the generation. If he just needs time to heat up again, but I think you're right. I just think, we talked about Hellebuck in the Winnipeg series to a different scale. I mean, this dude was way out of confidence, but it just seemed like Bobrovsky wasn't very comfortable in this game tonight. And who knows? We love breaking down goaltending. I mean, that's all of a sudden becoming a big part of the playoffs here.
I also believe that it's easiest to break down the goaltending, though. It's easy to look at a goalie and say, well, he wasn't good enough tonight. And hey, I was a victim of that tonight, but I do think Sergei Bobrovsky could have been better and should have been better. Positive-wise for Florida, though, you get Ekblad back in game 2. He served his 2-game suspension. You're going to get some guys back that are impact players, that can shake up a game, that can shake up a series. So I'm interested to see how his play, his return impacts the Panthers, because you look at a guy like Austin Matthews, he had that empty net from center ice, and he missed the net. And I'm thinking, man, Austin Matthews just closed the game out. It should have been 6-4. Instead, we had a minute of on the edge of our seats waiting to see if Woll was going to make the stops and if the Maple Leafs were going to hold on.
Yeah, but with Ekblad in there, that probably means no Balinskis. So that could be a real hit to the Florida Panthers offense. I don't know.
Come on. The guy scored his first career Stanley Cup playoff goal.
It was a beauty, man. He just needs some more opportunities. Speaking of the Matthews thing, how are you feeling about what we've seen from Matthews so far in this postseason? We've had Marner moments. We've obviously had Nylander moments. Matthew Knies, outside of that Game 5 against Ottawa, has been pretty impressive. But so far in the playoffs, I mean, 7 points in 7 games, right? It's nothing to sneeze at, but only 2 goals for Austin Matthews. It feels like he hasn't quite stepped into his game yet, 7 games into the postseason.
I could get behind that, but I also think that 7.7 games, point per game, he's doing more than just scoring. When you're playing that position, that center position, you've got to cover that whole length of the ice. It's more than just putting the puck in the net or assisting on putting pucks in the net. I truly believe that Austin Matthews' historic Stanley Cup playoff moment, we've yet to experience that yet. I truly believe that. I think there are some big plays in this Stanley Cup playoffs, some plays from Austin Matthews that we're going to go back to this conversation. And Cam, you're going to say, you know what, Tyler, you called it. You knew it. You had the belief in a player of that caliber that his moment just hasn't hit yet. And I think that moment's on the horizon for Austin Matthews. They've got so many talented guys offensively, and we saw those players tonight. Nylander scoring, Knies on that nice pass from Marner. I mean, it's more than just scoring, and Toronto was able to hang on. And I also love that their power play is typically 5 forwards. I just love that aggressiveness from the Maple Leafs. And I think that could be a difference maker in this series.
And yeah, to be fair, it just feels like we've been waiting for the Matthews one because we didn't get a goal with the Four Nations. That's the American in me. But he's been terrific defensively this whole year, and really the last 2 or 3 years. For I know a lot of Leafs fans watching have seen that progression. It's kind of like what we saw with Eichel going to Vegas. He's become that full 200-foot center, and it'll come. McKinnon's had his moments. McDavid's had his moments. The Matthews ones will come.
Cam, it's like me at Chipotle tonight for dinner.
Is it?
I was in line looking to get a chicken bowl, my signature chicken bowl. They have that new Chipotle honey chicken, and they were all out. So I say to the gentleman behind the glass serving up my food, hey, that looks like the guy behind you is actually cutting up some fresh Chipotle honey chicken. I was willing to wait. Instead, he thought that was just regular chicken. So I went through the rest of my order, got my salsa, my guac, my cheese. I had free guac tonight, so shout out me.
Beautiful.
Paid for my food, was ready to go. I was taking it to go. I wanted to eat it at my place. And I see the fresh Chipotle honey chicken. And on one hand, it would have been worth the wait. But I also wasn't delivered the goods. So sometimes the wait and the goods arrive at different times, Cam, and that could be the Auston Matthews experience here in the playoffs.
And the next time you go and they do have it, it's going to be even more gratifying.
It better be free. It better be on the house.
I mean, and maybe that's what Matthews is about to deliver to Leafs fans at some point.
On the house. A Stanley Cup on the house.
He has not gotten the cup yet. He has gotten an MVP, but most importantly, he has not yet made our stars of the night. Will he on this night after the Leafs take a 1-0 series lead? Let's tell you who our stars are. That is coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
But first, looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? If so, crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. I love these. I snack on these all the time. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. For example, personally, I love the no shells variety. It's just cleaner. I'm a clean eats guy. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm stacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, which I sometimes do, it's just a little messier, that's all. The in-shell options are always a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Running it back here, third period. Locked On NHL Game Night. Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman. After a 5-4 Leafs victory, take a 1-0 series lead. I'm not going to lie. I think the Leafs are going to win this series, but I definitely had the Panthers in game 1 of this one. I thought it was going to be similar to what we saw in Tampa, kind of that wake-up call that the Leafs probably, seem to need in every playoff series they play. But it was not the case. Toronto comes out with a big home victory. There's with 9 goals on the night, there's plenty of guys we can point to statistically for being our stars of the night. I'm going to start with the most obvious one. Willie Nylander comes in, 3 points, all in the first period, but a pretty crucial 3 points. We've talked about the 2 goals. The first one, kind of no angle. Second one, great finish. But how about that assist, Tyler? Do you remember this? So Seth Jones scores a power play goal, makes it 2-1. And Toronto scores 19 seconds later. And Nylander has this beautiful saucer pass. It goes right over the stick of a Panther. I don't remember who it was. And onto the stick of Morgan Rielly. 2-on-1, looks off the goaltender, buries it. It was a beautiful play. I mean, one of the most underrated gifted offensive defensemen in the NHL, and Morgan Rielly. It's set up by Nylander, showing that kind of full 200-foot offensive game, if you will, if that's not an oxymoron. The 3 points were crucial for the Leafs in this one, and he just continues to have a career year for a guy who was a scapegoat last year. missing a couple of playoff games in that Bruins series with the migraines. It was very mysterious. No one really knew what was going on. And of course, in the fishbowl that is Toronto, there was a lot being thrown at Willie Nylander, and he has shown up big time this whole season and specifically in these playoffs.
And those are the stories that I love, the human aspect. You don't always know the full story of what he was dealing with health-wise and how that was impacting his play. And then you see him explode the way in which he has in these playoffs, leads the Maple Leafs with 5 goals already so far through the postseason. And that saucer pass, you said it was my favorite play in this hockey game. It makes those slow-mo cameras that ESPN has. That's why they get the big bucks on those slow-mo cameras, because you could just see that saucer right onto the stick of Morgan Rielly. It was a beautiful pass, and it was a beautiful way to end the first period for Willie Nylander.
And one last thing on Nylander before we get to your star of the night. To go off that point, we just talked about Matthews in the last segment, and it's felt like it's been quiet. But again, 7 points in 7 games. And realistically, what Connor McDavid needed last year was the rest of the Oilers to step up. That's what Matthews has needed in Toronto too, except he's been surrounded by more talent, arguably, than McDavid has, even though McDavid has Draisaitl. But this postseason, you've seen Knies take a big step as a youngster. Mitch Marner has stepped up so far, and Willie Nylander has really stepped up. So that core 4 is feeling like a core 4. Whether it's Knies or Tavares as that 4th one, it's starting to feel like that finally.
Toronto 3-0 when scoring first this postseason. Entering this game, they're now 4-0 when scoring first. And that was the 3rd fastest Game 1 goal in Toronto Maple Leafs history. That Willie Nylander goal, 33 seconds.
33 seconds.
Pretty crazy start to the game. They were still rolling off lineups and intro game stuff, and boom, goal. And you mentioned my star of the night, Cam, Matthew Knies. And
schema.
I think if you would have asked me through the first 50 minutes, I would have said probably William Nylander. But with the way in which Florida battled back with 6 minutes left, when Knies made it 5-3, that beautiful pass from Mitch Marner, and it was just that sweet backhand move by Knies to chip it over with his backhand over Bobrovsky. That was the play of the night. That gave Toronto the insurance that allowed them to give up one more goal when Sam Bennett made it 5-4 with $1:55 left. Knies, that's the go-ahead. That's the game-winning goal at that point. So without Knies putting that puck in the back of the net, we might not be taping this as early as we're taping this. That game could be in the second overtime at this point. So thank you, Matthew Knies, for delivering the goods and creating quite the scene in Toronto here in Game 1. It is setting up to be a fantastic series, one in which I can very well see going 7 games because, one, these teams don't like each other.
Sure.
Tkachuk in that game got frustrated on several different occasions. I thought the physicality was handled pretty well by the officiating crew tonight. I thought there could have been moments where the physicality after a whistle could have really been elevated. Instead, it was held in check.
That's a good point.
I don't know if that will be the case as this series progresses. I think it'll be very interesting. Division foes, 1-2 punch all season long. And now you have a Florida team who really breezed through a very good Tampa Bay team, basically dropping a dud here in Game 1. What more do they have? And I think the physicality, we've seen it before. They lose a game, the physicality will go up. So how will Toronto handle that physicality? And then how will the Panthers respond after losing 5-4 here in Game 1?
And at the risk of setting my personal record for compliments for the Leafs in a half-hour span, I do want to say about Matthew Knies too. The kid is smart. And part of that comes with playing probably a couple years of NCAA college hockey as well and playing in big games there. But it is a testament to this kind of core group that has not been able to win in the playoffs, that hasn't done the little things in years past. The fact that they're the leadership group, and here's a guy who has been able to slot right in there for the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons, in Matthew Knies. He's making good decisions with the puck. Just a smart hockey player at that. We'll see if Toronto's able to keep him and Marner in the next few years. That will be crucial to keep both those guys in the books. But right now, Game 1's in the books. 1-0 the series lead for Toronto and a 5-4 back and forth victory. I agree wholeheartedly, Tyler. By the way, we're seeing 6 or 7 here. I don't think this is going to be a quick series between these two division rivals.
Hey,
It's
what
gonna
if it's a sweep? That'd be crazy.
that would be nuts. And at
bring
that point,
bring out the brooms.
At that point, it's gonna start feeling like 1967. Summer of Love is coming part 2. If they
End the
sweep
streak.
the
End
Panthers,
the streak.
they're winning this whole thing. As much as I don't necessarily want that, if they beat the Panthers, if they sweep them, they're winning the whole thing. Everybody else is playing for second. Anyway, that is the night that was in the NHL. So make sure, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's totally free to do that. Ring the notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping the shows here. We're available to you 7 days a week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, bringing you every NHL score, save, goal, storyline, hearing from the local experts from the Locked On shows and from the guys like us, Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman, reminding you to join us back here again tomorrow and break down all the craziness happening in the Stanley Cup playoffs on Locked On NHL Game Night.